I spent the night with a guy I have been seeing for a couple of months. In the morning, he had something to do, so I woke up alone in the house. We had to go to work afterward, so I borrowed one of his t-shirts and a pair of socks. On the way to work, he noticed that I was wearing his t-shirt and became really upset. I apologized and agreed that it was not okay to take his things without asking beforehand, and I thought that was the end of it. After 2 days, when we talked again after him being silent, he told me he wasn't sure he still wanted to see me because of this. Is there anything more I can do? How should I handle this? Story 1. Normally, I am not salty, except for one ex who took an old rugby sweater from high school that resembled my old jersey. I only had one, and she used it as a paint smock. To this day, I am upset. Story 2. I think it's one thing to walk around my place wearing my clothes without asking, but to grab one, borrow it, and take it to work without asking is another. Although I also think his reaction is a little over the top, pun unintended. Story 3. I don't think it's a big deal, but I understand that some people might not like it. It shouldn't take more than a simple apology to make it better. Perhaps he didn't appreciate that you felt entitled to take his shirt without asking. Maybe he was considering leaving you beforehand. I don't think there is much more you can do. If you really want to try, you can reach out and talk to him, but it's a long shot. Story 4. Taking it without asking is disrespectful. That's just basic manners. You don't know if it had personal significance, even if it looks like a simple t-shirt to you. He might see it as a personal red flag based on previous experiences with women who didn't respect his property or boundaries. Or he might simply not have wanted anything more and is using this as an excuse to tell you. The best approach is to apologize for taking it without asking, return it, and if you want to see him again, let him know he can contact you if he decides he still wants to meet. I doubt you would hear from him again, but you never know. Story 5. Personally, I don't care if it's someone I'm dating for a while, but I do like to be asked first. I've had previous partners take my clothing and ruin it. They either get makeup stains on it or stretch it out. You don't know someone's favorite clothing, regardless of whether you think it's just an old hoodie, t-shirt, or even socks. Could be a gift from a family member. Manners cost nothing, and not asking is a significant sign of disrespect. Before anyone jumps in, obviously, if it's your girlfriend or wife, it's less of a big deal, but even then, I'd want to be asked. What if I had planned to wear that item before it can be washed? Story 6. I had a girl I liked take one of my flannels after staying over one night. I had recently bought that shirt. It had a really cool look to it and was made by a Swiss designer. One day I was looking for it and couldn't find it. I had no idea she had taken it until years later, after she moved across the country and came back to visit. I found it in her car. I was disappointed. I really liked that shirt. I had an ex who would wear my shirts, hoodies, and shorts. She usually kept them at my place except for some of my hoodies. Unfortunately, she also stretched the clothes out, which was frustrating. My current girlfriend will wear my shirts when she stays over, and I'm fine with that because she asks me to pick one that she can wear. I gave her one of my hoodies, but she doesn't wear it outside of cuddling with it when I'm not around. I think getting permission for things is important because you could change something without meaning to. For instance, I have some t-shirts and other clothes I air dry because the dryer on normal heat shrinks them. If someone borrowed them and then thought they were doing me a favor by cleaning them before returning, that would be unfortunate. Story 7. In my opinion, there is a difference between doing something and acting entitled to do it, such as taking someone's belongings without asking. Additionally, you mentioned that he noticed it, which implies you did not directly inform him. If you ask me to borrow a shirt, that is fine. If we are in a hurry and you need to borrow one, grabbing it and telling me at the first opportunity is acceptable. However, it sounds like you did not inform him at all until he discovered it himself, which is definitely not cool. Let's fast forward 6 months into the relationship. I find a significant scratch on my car that wasn't there yesterday, and only then do you mention that you borrowed my car. Assuming the best, you might not even tell me then. Or if you make a mistake while drunk, you may not tell me unless I find out for myself. Why would I want a relationship like that? Why would I want someone who, before the relationship even begins, feels entitled to take my belongings without asking me? Story 8. I had an ex steal a Vans hoodie from me in 2018, and I am still mad about it. I asked for it back 3 times, but it was never returned to me. Yes, I am angry. Story 9. I have never had a girlfriend who didn't take things without permission, with excuses ranging from a girlfriend text to, it's just what girls do. Please stop treating others with such inconsideration and taking from them. It's not cute. It's not endearing. It's insulting. Story 10. It's one thing to borrow it to sleep in. It's not right to take a shirt or hoodie as if it belongs to you. My clothes are not for everyone. Story 11. It happened a few times when I was much younger, but it only ever bothered me when it was someone I was seeing out of convenience or not really into. If it was someone I was truly interested in, I felt flattered and found it a turn-on. Story 12. I do not like it when anyone steals my belongings. Over the years, I have purchased at least a dozen blue chambray work shirts. I do not leave them in places, and they do not disappear in the laundry. Yet I have none. Where have they all gone? Story 13. Personally, I don't like people taking my things, as most of them have some level of significance to me. I also dislike when people move my belongings. Unless someone asks, I would be upset if I returned and found my things had been moved. Since I am visually impaired, it takes me a while to find something if it is not in the place where I left it. Organized chaos can be quite wonderful, can't it? Story 14. I would not have thought of it as a big deal, especially since you were seeing each other. In fact, I might have thought it was cute, as long as I get it back. However, this sounds like it might be a trauma response from him. Different people have different triggers. One of mine is food. My mother used withholding and apportioning food as a way to control me and my siblings, so anyone casually eating off my plate or taking my food without asking can set me off. I did not even realize the connection until last year. Perhaps in a similar way, you taking his clothes without asking is triggering a reaction to something in his past. Could also be something else. I think apologizing was the right thing to do regardless of what caused it. Good luck navigating this with him. Story 15. Personal preference. I couldn't care less, just don't wear my underwear. That doesn't sit right with me. The only item of clothing I would be upset about a partner borrowing would be my suit jackets or pants because I have two, and I never want to need to buy more than those two. I didn't realize this could be such a boundary for some people. I know fashion is important for some, but it's just a shirt. Story 16. I offer my clothes to my girlfriend if I know that we will be apart for a while. She loves how I smell. Story 17. If we are dating, I could not care less. When we break up, I will take inventory and make sure I have all my garments. Story 18. It's not great that you took it without asking, but it is fair that many people might see this as flattering, like a signal that you like them. Maybe you are used to it. Perhaps you could try telling him that you intended to return it. You just didn't think much of it because you didn't consider it stealing. Story 19. I borrowed one of his t-shirts and a pair of socks. On the way to work, he noticed. Which is it? Did you actually borrow the clothes, meaning you obtained his permission ahead of time? Or did you simply take them with the intention of returning them later? It's one or the other. Story 20. Wearing it around my home is okay, but taking it outside? No, that's a bit strange if you're relatively new to dating. It's not a deal breaker, but if that makes him uncomfortable, then you might face challenges as a couple, so there's no need to worry. Story 21. My now wife took my green hoodie before we were even dating, and that was 17 years ago. I have come to terms with it. Story 22. I have a teenage daughter who loves taking my shirts for sleeping and lounging around the house. I have accepted that my shirts are basically her property at this point. Story 23. I have always made it clear what not to use, primarily around work shirts. I also cleared space for her to leave some of her belongings here, as I am a few sizes larger than her, and she needs her own items to look professional. I simply ask that she returns whatever she borrows, and it has never been a problem. I am not typically a hoodie fan, but I will get a couple this fall specifically for her to occasionally borrow. All this to say, I am fine with it and we have discussed it. I do not know your friend, but I can see two possibilities here. First, He may be shocked or surprised to discover that you did this without having a conversation first and is handling the situation poorly. Alternatively, he could be indicating early on that he is not willing to share. Story 24. The person is being unreasonable. Leave him. It's just a shirt. Go search for Burundi on YouTube and watch some videos. There are more important things in life. If I were a woman and the person reacted like that, I would leave because he's acting inappropriately. Story 25. It is not the wearing of his clothes that is the issue. It is that the original poster disrespected him by taking his belongings without asking. Borrow means you asked. Here, the original poster just straight up stole his clothes. I would be upset too. Story 26. A person might be possessive about their belongings. This often happens to individuals who grow up with many siblings, as they may need reassurance before sharing. Additionally, some individuals with obsessive-compulsive disorder-related issues may not feel comfortable with others sharing their clothes. Story 27. Or how should I handle this? There is nothing to handle here. You have disrupted the relationship. Just make sure you don't overlook the lesson in consent before you move on to the next person. Story 28. What you may not know is that I bought a pack of 10 of my favorite hoodie, so if someone wants to take one, it's fine. Story 29. As long as I get my belongings back, I think it's really cute. It makes me feel somewhat manly that she is wearing my clothes. Story 30. It is always considerate to ask people if you can borrow their belongings. His reaction was a bit extreme, but perhaps he has had experiences where others disrespected his property, so he feels strongly about it. I also would not appreciate someone taking my things without my knowledge, regardless of what they are. That being said, I do not mind if girls wear my clothes, as long as they treat them well. I have no problem lending a hoodie or cardigan if someone is cold, or a shirt for them to sleep in. I wouldn't be upset if they wanted to wear something of mine around my place if they were chilly. In fact, I think it's cute, especially if they mention how much they enjoy that it smells like me. Story 31. My wife used to lend my belongings to others. I expressed my dislike for it, and she never did it again. I was quite upset. Some personal letters were mixed in with my things. However, after I explained my feelings, she understood. I have also done things that upset her. Some were justifiable, while others were not. However, we learned to have conversations about our issues instead of resorting to silence. Story 32. Question. Do you work together? Do your coworkers know you're in a relationship? Was the t-shirt distinctive in any way? Story 33. Apologizing sincerely is the best course of action. Do not be one of those women who steals food off plates, borrows clothes, and takes items without asking. This behavior creates the impression that you view men's resources as your own, which is very disrespectful. Story 34. Simple. Don't take things that aren't yours, and this situation can be avoided. You went there in clothes, so why not leave in the same outfit? Story 35. It is surprising how many women feel free to borrow my clothes without asking. They always seem to know which shirt or hoodie is most valuable to me. Please communicate instead of just taking my clothes. Story 36. I loaned a female friend a sweatshirt at a party once. She got sick all over it and I never saw it again. Since then, I've been very mindful of sharing my clothes with women. Story 37. Apologize and don't do it again. Seriously, consider what he's asking. Ask before you take my things. You don't understand why this is important. Why does his request surprise you? Story 38. One of my ex-partners didn't return a sweatshirt when we ended our relationship. I'm still upset about it. It was a nice sweatshirt. Story 39. It sounds like a significant overreaction. You have apologized. It is time to move on. The silent treatment for 2 days is a sign of narcissism, so tread carefully. Story 40. At this point, I thought girls stealing clothes was just part of having a girlfriend. When I was younger, I was really into hats. The number of times I had to take my hat off a girl's head while she was about to walk away with it is countless. I feel like women don't always respect our physical boundaries, thinking that anything they do physically is acceptable for men. Story 41. You took his clothes and are surprised he's mad? What even happened to the clothes you went there in? Story 42. I recently lost a hoodie that I had since I was 16 due to a breakup. I had never let anyone else wear it. If it's just a t-shirt or some joggers, then that's fine. Story 43. I don't like it when people steal from me. I haven't experienced this, but I would be upset. It's borrowing if you ask. It's stealing if you don't. Story 44. I personally dislike it. I'm an awkward fit, so when I have clothes that are important to me, I want to keep them. If someone asked, I have plenty of old or ill-fitting clothes that I don't care about. I've been with my partner for 14 years, and I've had to set aside specific clothes for her. Story 45. When you start borrowing clothes, it becomes serious. He didn't want it to get serious. It has nothing to do with the actual clothes. Story 46. So he is upset because you stayed the night and borrowed a shirt and some socks in the morning? Granted, I'm older and married, but that seems like an overreaction. He was likely looking for a reason to end things. Thinking back to when I was dating, if a woman spent the night and felt comfortable enough to take my clothes the next morning, I would view that as a positive sign. You are comfortable enough to not only stay at my place overnight, but also go into my drawers and find something that fits you without asking. Maybe I'm off base, but that communicates feelings of security and trust. The only caveat I could see is if he had something personal and private that he wasn't ready to share with you yet. For example, I keep a journal in my nightstand that I write in almost every night. My wife knows it would be an irreparable breach of trust if she read it, but she also knows it's there and what it is, which is an established boundary. If I were dating and a girl went through my nightstand and looked at that, I would understandably and justifiably be upset. So, if he thought you may have seen or looked at something he wasn't ready for you to experience yet, I could see that reaction as reasonable, but outside of that, it just seems excessive. Story 47. I have no issues with this, but that's just my perspective. He told me he wasn't sure if he still wanted to see me because of this. He's not into you and never was. Story 48. After 2 days of silence, he told me he wasn't sure if he still wanted to see me because of our situation. I also question how much I can trust someone who has stolen from me. To clarify, men often face the reality that many women view them as a means to extract resources. They typically expect this to happen through manipulation, where the man at least consents to being used for as much of his value as possible. Completely skipping the consent part is a different matter altogether. Story 49. I wouldn't care. I would actually want my girlfriend to take it. I have too many clothes. I'm trying to get rid of them. Story 50. It's actually very common and represents both a form of bonding and territorial dominance. He is likely feeling territorial and unhappy that you are trying to claim him. This is not a good reason to break up with someone, in my opinion. Can be quite endearing and shows a sense of being chosen. However, he may be overreacting to the situation. Story 51. The guy sounds like a joke, to be honest. Back in my younger days, if another girl took a piece of clothing, it was a hot or cute, B, a perfect excuse to see her again to get it back, C, a piece of me on her, and D, hopefully I would get it back smelling of her perfume and with a hairband, scrunchie, or a pair of underwear in the pocket. This guy getting upset about it is just being foolish, to be honest. Story 52. Maybe he's worried you're a trophy collector. Maybe he'll just be a t-shirt and a pair of socks like all the rest when this is over. Story 53. I would never take or wear something without asking, unless we are best friends or exclusively dating. Who knows why he is really upset, but it could be fair or unfair. I have dated men who have had expensive jewelry, cash in wallets, designer clothes, and other valuable items stolen from them when allowing women to leave after them. Leaving you unattended could have been a big deal to him, so taking something, regardless of its value, could have set him off. You could have stopped by your place before work or come prepared for your shift. Maybe he couldn't understand why you would go into his closet to borrow his clothes. To resolve this, you might consider baking him cookies or brownies and apologizing. Mention that you didn't think much of it. You thought you were being mindful since he was working, and you will bring your own clothes next time. Misunderstandings happen all the time, and sometimes that's how you get to know someone better. I hope he isn't using this as an excuse to end things, as that would be very childish. Story 54. My shirt on you is like a flag on a conquered nation. I'll buy a new shirt. That's not a problem. You can have it. Story 55. I don't mind. Just let me choose what she takes. Some of my clothes mean a lot to me while others do not. I would be upset too if you took some of my clothes without asking. Story 56. As long as I get it back in the same condition it was borrowed, I'm generally okay with it. Please ask first if logistics allow. Some of my clothes are quite expensive, and I would prefer not to replace them. A t-shirt would be acceptable, and a shirt would be fine if you were special. However, most of my clothes are fitted, so depending on your size, it may stretch out the top. Story 57. You should have asked, but you acknowledged that he is certainly overreacting. There is nothing you can do about it. Story 58. Are you larger than him in any way? My ex would borrow my t-shirts and stretch them out so they never fit properly afterward. If your chest is on the larger side, this could have been a concern of his. Story 59. I used to get annoyed by it, but then I got over it. Maybe it's because we have been together for 8 years, or because, honestly, it's just not worth the energy to stay angry over something so trivial. That said, the silent treatment is immature. Speaking from experience, as I used to do the same, it's something you should pay attention to as the relationship develops. It can be a red flag if it becomes a pattern. Communication is key. Story 60. For guys, that's kind of a relationship-only thing. I was with a girl once for a few weeks who took home my favorite lounging around the house sweater. It didn't bother me until she ghosted me, and I never saw my sweater again. I'm sure she thought I was stalking her, but I just wanted my sweater back. Story 61. Perhaps you took something too personally. Usually, men don't react if a woman wears their clothes. Story 62. Typically, if you ask, I am fine with it. However, I had a one-night stand in college where someone took my shirt without asking, and for some reason, that bothered me. It wasn't even a shirt I particularly cared about. Story 63. In general, it depends on the particular article of clothing. On one hand, you should have asked. On the other hand, it is not worth getting really upset over and giving 2 days of silent treatment. That is immature behavior. Story 64. I have never experienced this before, but I once had a woman leave her underwear after a one-night stand. I was unsure how to interpret that. Story 65. Just buy him some clothes, apologize, and conclude the conversation. You discovered a quirk. There is nothing more to it. Story 66. My ex liked to take things and wear them home without returning them. Some of the items were not significant, but the sweatshirts my late grandmother brought back from Ireland and the t-shirt from my road trip birthday were important to me. We did not end on good terms, and it was quite tense when I went to her house to retrieve them. Story 67. It happened a few times, mostly when I was a teenager, and like your friend, I wasn't really happy with it and thought it was pretty messed up. I'm not sure how to explain it, but there's always a point in a relationship where you can do this, even if it's something you don't actually discuss. You just know. If you don't just know that this is acceptable, you probably shouldn't do it. A good place to start, however, is to just ask. In your situation, it wouldn't have been any trouble to say, "Hey, I didn't bring a change of clothes with me last night. So do you mind if I grab one of your shirts and a pair of your socks?" If you had done that, you could have avoided this entire situation. Treat others the way you want to be treated. It's a simple thing to do, and it almost never ends badly. Story 68. For me, I don't mind if my partner wears a hoodie around the house or when we go out together, but it becomes frustrating when they take shirts and socks, as it can be irritating to go to get changed and find that the item you wanted to wear is missing. Story 69. He is reacting that way because it feels like you are violating his boundaries. You might be thinking that you need clothes, and since they are available, you will just use them. He perceives it as you treating his belongings as yours and not respecting him enough to ask him directly. There is also an element of not planning ahead, which can be interpreted negatively. Honestly, I'm not completely sure how you should move forward. Having an intimate connection could help, and in the future, it is important to avoid using his things without asking. Story 70. You could explain that you expected it wouldn't be a problem due to your perception of cultural norms. Now that you understand he finds it disrespectful, you won't do it again because you don't want to cause him any grief. Anyone worth being with should be understanding and forgiving to some degree, and an honest mistake made without any intention of malice can easily be forgiven, in my opinion. Story 71. I have had my Ray-Ban sunglasses stolen by an ex. I had my favorite t-shirt stolen, a red Cheers shirt. I have also had my favorite hoodie taken. My reaction? Sadness, every time I think of those items and how they are forever gone. Story 72. The only thing I have ever had taken was a jacket. It didn't matter because she was my girlfriend and often wore it when we went out and it was cold. In this situation, I would be slightly upset if you went into my drawers and took some clothes without asking, but I wouldn't break up with someone for it. Story 73. I would be put off by this. Seems small, but it would make me concerned. If she is willing to take a t-shirt without telling me, what else is she okay with taking? Do women forget that they have breasts that stretch men's clothes because we do not have them? Story 74. The phrase "we had to go to work after" suggests that they work together. Her wearing his shirt to work would indicate to everyone at the office where she spent the night. He might not want that for several reasons. Speculating further is unnecessary. In my opinion, he either didn't want anyone knowing about their relationship or he is particularly particular about his clothes. Story 75. Isolated, it's not too bad if they take a shirt I don't care about. As an overall phenomenon, it irks me because I know whenever I'm hanging out at her place and she puts on the oversized t-shirt and shorts combo, there's a good chance she got that shirt from some guy she used to date. I think too many women collect them like trading cards. Say what you will about ego, but I think if men were walking around wearing their significant others' clearly female shirts from past relationships, they'd have a problem with it too. Story 76. Have you tried asking, I really want to understand better. Can I ask why this shirt is important to you? Maybe he feels upset because he didn't get a chance to express his feelings about why it bothered him. If he explained his feelings the first time and you responded defensively or dismissively with, it doesn't seem like a big deal to me, but sorry, I won't take your things again. That could also leave him feeling unheard and wanting to end the conversation. Story 77. I understand that it's a boundary issue for him, but you apologized and said you wouldn't do it again, and he's still upset? That seems like a red flag. People sometimes overstep. A person must be willing and able to accept an apology and let things go. No one is perfect. I had a girlfriend once who stayed over, and in the morning she was wearing one of my college sweatshirts. When I saw her, she said, I borrowed your sweatshirt. It's like you're hugging me even if you're not. It was impossible for me to be upset about that, even if the only way I ever got it back was to marry her. It's 40 years later and she still does it and I still don't mind. Story 78. I think it's cute, kind of like they want a memento. Take the hoodie or oversized shirt I gave you. I can get 100 more, and if it's special to you, then it was worth double what I paid. Story 79. No problem. Keep it until nighttime. What is wrong with this generation? However, I do have some clothes from friends who have passed that would make me upset if taken. The odds are it would lead to the same situation, just with higher anxiety until I get it back. Story 80. This is not normal. I wouldn't be upset if you took a t-shirt. It would be nice to ask first, but it's not a big deal. Story 81. No, I had to return a few items before they attempted to leave with them. Why are you stealing clothes? Story 82. This issue may be deeper for him than he lets on, which would explain his distance and hesitation to see you a few days later. Here are some examples from my own dating life. Once, while on vacation with a girlfriend, I gave her a spare set of keys to my car to hold on to for the trip. I did this because my main key had a crack in the plastic, and I was nervous that it would somehow fall off the key ring, leaving us stranded. We broke up shortly after, and she would not return the spare key. A new key cost several $100s, and I never got it back. With my last girlfriend, I let her borrow a book that she and her sister were interested in. It held great sentimental value, as it was from a class my dad and I attended when I was a teenager. We broke up sometime later, and she refused to give me the book. This continued for months, and then my dad was diagnosed with cancer. Eventually, she returned the book, but it was bent and damaged. About a month ago, I went on a first date and brought two drink holders to a concert, one for me and one for her. She thanked me for thinking of her, but an hour later, she lost the drink holder. The one she lost was from a local, internationally known business that changed its name a few years ago, and I just really liked that drink holder. Now, I am wary of lending anything valuable or sentimental to a girlfriend. This really sucks because nothing is hotter to me than when your girl wears your shirt or hoodie. I would say either cut your losses and move on or make it clear to him that you'll ask in the future and treat whatever you lend like it's not yours, prioritizing its care. Story 83. I think you should ask before taking someone's belongings. Having sex with them does not remove that boundary. Story 84. I would be more upset about the socks than the shirt personally because how do my large socks fit your small feet? Seriously though, if you are an item and the clothes are coming back, who cares? It's just a t-shirt. I would take the bailout since it's only a couple of months invested, and if he is this sensitive about a shirt, what will be truly life-changing? Story 85. All of my favorite hoodies would inevitably fall into my ex's hands when we were together. I didn't mind it, to be honest, but I guess some people do. She would always give them back and swap them for another one of my recently worn hoodies, so it's not like I never got them back. Story 86. I find it incredibly odd how many people here would actually be bothered by this. It's a t-shirt. My wife could throw away about 10% of my clothes, and I wouldn't even notice. Why do you care if your girlfriend borrows your t-shirt? Story 87. That is surprising to get that upset. Once I am with a woman, she can have full access to my closet. I am actually flattered if I see her wearing my clothes. Story 88. To me, it wouldn't be a big deal. I would actually be flattered if a girl liked me so much that she wanted my clothes. If the roles were reversed and I was really into a girl, I would want something with her scent on it too. For example, a puffer jacket or a sweater that gets washed less frequently than shirts or tops. I would take it as a positive. Story 89. A girl I was trying to date in high school took one of my favorite hoodies without my knowledge. I still want it back to this day. Story 90. He may have had an ex steal a significant piece of clothing, which could be a sensitive issue for him. Most men have items of clothing they wouldn't want borrowed by their girlfriends. You probably chose the wrong item to borrow, and he was caught off guard when he found out. Of course, he won't be happy about it. Be genuinely apologetic. Let him know you will ask him next time and make it up to him. If he is still upset after that, then he is definitely overreacting. Story 91. I love to see my girl in either one of my t-shirts and her little shorts or my oversized sweats with a crop top. There's just something adorable about it. Story 92. Guys are totally overreacting. I had a girlfriend who was similar. I would take money out of her purse occasionally, and she freaked out one night when she saw me. I'm like, chill. Story 93. Chicks love the smell. My ex had my sweater for about 2 years before she returned it. It is what it is. Story 94. I take all my current female clothes because she has about 100 pounds on me. Her clothes are so comfortable that I occasionally go out in her sweatpants. They are so soft and smell really good too. Story 95. I find it adorable to see a woman I am dating wearing my clothes. Everyone is different, I suppose. Perhaps he is possessive over his belongings. Story 96. Just because you are in a relationship does not mean what is his is yours and what is yours is his. Perhaps he should start wearing your clothes. How would you feel if he started going through your purse? People forget that we need our personal space and belongings, even when we share our lives with someone. Pro tip. Do not ever touch his tools without permission. Never. Story 97. It depends on the shirt. If it had sentimental value or was a collector's item, you should have asked first, perhaps by texting him. Maybe he didn't want it stretched out or ruined in any way. If it was a standard Hanes white t-shirt, then he is overreacting, especially by still holding a grudge. I assume you would wash and return it afterward. At least now you know one of his quirks, and you can ask about his boundaries. Story 98. I think the best way to know is by asking. There were a lot of boys I dated before, and they never got mad at me for wearing their clothes. I cleaned my room last week and found 30 t-shirts of my boyfriend. I put them in a bag and left them at his house, but he was not mad at all. Just ask. Story 99. I understand that you've been seeing each other for a while, and he left you at his home by yourself, which shows he trusts you. Given the context, I think he's overreacting a bit. Perhaps you both need to discuss this in person to understand why he's upset and establish some healthy boundaries. If he's being unreasonable, you deserve a partner who allows you to wear his shirts when you stay over. My husband didn't mind when I wore his clothes when we first started dating. When either of us didn't like something the other did or overstepped a boundary we were unaware of, we simply talked about it. We never got mad or upset. New relationships are about learning from each other as you spend more time together. I don't think you did anything wrong, and his concerns are valid. However, you should communicate about it in person. Story 100. Girls like to wear your clothes because it makes them feel closer to you. Tell him it wasn't to take his things, but that you like him a lot and wearing his shirt reminds you of how wonderful it is to be with him. Story 101. Don't take my things without asking first. However, I also wouldn't be upset about it. I would just say to please ask next time and to get it back to me as soon as possible. Story 102. I have never had to deal with this since my clothes are too large for any woman to wear without looking like a small child in their parents' clothes. However, I believe he is overreacting. Story 103. If it's my favorite hoodie, then we have a problem, but normally I don't care. I gave my niece a few of my old clothes from when I was in high school, and she jumped for joy. I think women and girls just love men's hoodies. Story 104. If he is upset about the shirt, he is just not that into you. You should probably give it back and then move on. Story 105. I understand it being a boundary for him, even if it's one I wouldn't personally share. I actually find it adorable. That said, him making a big deal about it and suggesting he doesn't want to see you anymore seems excessive. It also indicates to me that he may not view the relationship in the same way you do. You see it as two people on a team, while he sees it as two separate individuals who happen to come together sometimes. You've apologized, and he should have decided whether to accept that before seeing you again. I don't think there's anything else you should have done or need to do. Story 106. He was probably looking for a reason to move on unless the items you took were really expensive. I've never dated a girl who didn't take my clothes if she had access to them. I had one peculiar person who didn't want the clean shirts. She preferred to steal the shirt I had just taken off. Story 107. Maybe outside of a few select pieces of clothing, I wouldn't care. The one thing that immediately comes to mind that would annoy me is if it were the last of my clean work shirts. In a scenario where I knew she didn't have appropriate clothing, I'd expect her to borrow some of my clothes. For example, if she came over after a date night, was wearing something fancy, and didn't have a change of clothes, I would have offered before the morning. Story 108. My girl sometimes takes my sweaters. They look like a dress with sleeves that are too long for her. It's adorable. Story 109. Honestly, I wouldn't care much. Unless it's a sentimental piece of clothing, which I don't have much of, I moved on. I'm not worried about a piece of clothing that can easily be returned. The thing is, you said, we went to work, meaning you could be working together, in which case he might not want the workplace to know, although, let's be honest, it's probably been obvious for months. Story 110. I have my first adult girlfriend and my favorite hoodie. We broke up and I wasn't upset about it. Years later, I met this girl on Bumble. She came over and spent the night. I let her borrow my hoodie. In the morning, when she was leaving with my new favorite hoodie, I looked at her and said, "Are you about to take my hoodie?" She looked back at me and asked, "You don't want me to steal your hoodie?" I thought, "No, I don't want you to steal my hoodie. I don't even know you that well." I never saw her again. Good call. Story 111. My wife enjoys lounging in my shirts. It used to annoy me a little, but I've stopped caring. She looks better than I do anyway. Story 112. One time, my partner got my top-of-the-line Hallmark signature spider jacket. I have no regrets. She worked hard for it. The winter night was cold afterwards. However, I have managed to keep warm until this day. Story 113. I would be upset too, but once you receive the message, I would let it go. That aspect is within him. You assumed it would be acceptable without asking. That responsibility is on you. Story 114. It's okay to ask for something back when it's been borrowed. Can be really frustrating. Personally, I believe my ex still has a t-shirt and a hoodie that she took from me. I will probably never see those again. Story 115. Girlfriends frequently wear my socks because I buy nice ones. I've never minded since we lived together, and they always went into my drawer after being washed. Usually, the problem arises when the line of ownership gets blurred. There was no established understanding regarding returning items before taking them. He realized that he didn't know where the line was drawn, and there was also no indication of how far it could go. Now he perceives normalcy as you taking something without asking, which would be acceptable. However, he is uncertain if normal will now be you keeping it without asking, as it has become normal for him not to know where the line is until after you take action. Story 116. I think borrowing is acceptable with enough time and commitment put into the relationship. A couple of months might be a little soon for me to be fair. I had a girl I really wanted to date, and I let her borrow my hoodie, which was my graduation hoodie. She ended up making out, possibly more, with a close friend of mine. Getting my hoodie back was difficult. I wouldn't have cared so much if it wasn't something my parents got me for graduation, but still. I've also given shirts and hoodies to girls before, but it was offered, never taken. Story 117. But it smells like yours. Yeah, no, that's my hoodie. I've been looking for it for days, and it definitely isn't yours. You can't just take things like a ferret because you like them. Story 118. I think it could have been more appropriate for you to wear something else to work. It feels as though you made the decision to go public without his consent. The wording may not be entirely accurate, but you understand the concept. Story 119. Not cool for not asking. I would be a bit upset, but I would give you plenty of opportunities to make it up to me. Story 120. It depends on how far along we are in the relationship. In any case, asking for permission before borrowing is a healthy practice. If we are essentially living together, I wouldn't mind at all. Story 121. Being initially upset is understandable because he was probably not expecting it. However, dragging it out for over 2 days is interesting. Story 122. That's very odd behavior on his part. If he gets that upset easily, perhaps it's best to move on. Personally, I find women in my clothes very attractive. I love when my wife wears my things. She looks so adorable. My shirts and coats fit her like a dress. Story 123. The first time my girlfriend stayed the night at my place, she got excited for raid your boyfriend's closet time. I opened the closet, told her the 3 things she couldn't take because they were special to me, and then walked out. She made 2 great choices, and it was really fun. If things don't work out between us, I don't expect the shirt and sweatshirt back, and I'll do the same for the next girl. Story 124. Rule of thumb: the newer the relationship, the more sensitive this issue becomes. Unless you know them well enough to understand the significance of that article of clothing, it's best to ask first. I don't think you would be pleased to find out they were casually taking things from your place. I have plenty of shirts and hoodies to share, but some of them are important to me for sentimental reasons, and I would be upset if my girlfriend took them without asking. Story 125. Personally, I have a few shirts that I would be unhappy about losing, but they are in different drawers, so you would need to search carefully to find them, which could lead to several issues. If it were a shirt that was easily accessible or a generic one, I might mention wanting it back at some point and tease you about it, depending on our relationship and how I think you would take such a joke. However, as a general rule, the right thing to do is to ask first. Now, regarding what you actually asked, it's hard to determine if there is anything you can do from here. The best advice I can offer is to talk to him. Find out if this is a significant issue for him or if it was about that specific shirt. Discover if he understands why he feels so strongly about the situation. I have things that may seem like overreactions to people who do not know me well, but they actually have a logical basis rooted in my past experiences. If he has reached a point where he does not want to communicate with you, trying to press the issue is unlikely to be beneficial. Additionally, if he becomes very upset about something you consider trivial, it might be worth reflecting on whether this indicates larger compatibility issues between the two of you. Ultimately, I don't believe you will gain anything more useful than anecdotes from strangers by asking this particular question here. This is really something he can only address, and only if he chooses to do so. Story 126. Maybe you all can have another conversation, but don't push the issue. It seems as if a trigger was hit by those actions, marking you as a thief in his view, and that may be a sore spot for him. So again, don't push the issue if he doesn't want to talk to you anymore. However, if there's an opening and you both are really feeling each other, offer reassurance that it was just the comfort felt that made that an easy option. I wouldn't pursue it, though, because things happen. If they've been around and really paid attention to your character, and you didn't give those vibes previously, ending the relationship feels a bit much. Ultimately, you might have to accept the fact that they may not be as into you as you are to them. Story 127. All my clothes, hats, sweaters, and t-shirts. I used to wear a really nice cologne, and being a big guy, they would use it as a pillowcase or just lay it around. It never bothered me. Story 128. Does my wife count? My wife wears mine all the time. My t-shirts are like nightgowns on her. I love it. Story 129. Yes, it's quite unusual that you didn't mention it to him. I mean, that's a significant red flag if, after a couple of months, you are already treating his belongings as your own. Story 130. I have learned to keep a clean t-shirt and hoodie specifically for when a woman stays over to offer her the following morning. Story 131. The number of hoodies I have lost to women over the years is easily in the 20s. I never minded. I actually liked the idea. When I confronted one about it, she simply said, "It's comfy. It smells like you. So when I wear it, it reminds me of you." I replied, "Okay, just take all my clothes." Story 132. If they truly like you, they won't care unless it's something really nice. A t-shirt and socks are not that nice. Story 133. I wore my boyfriend's clothes, and usually he doesn't mind, but I accidentally grabbed one of his sentimental t-shirts the other day. He just asked me not to wear that one anymore because it was important to him. I said I wouldn't, and that was that. I gave it back to him, and it worked out because he spilled something on the white shirt he was wearing later that day. If a guy I was seeing for months got upset about it and said it was a relationship-ending offense, then I would probably be okay with that relationship ending. It would be strange if you were dating for 2 months or less and you did it without asking, but if it's been longer than that, you stay over often, and you're in a committed relationship, I don't think it's worth breaking up over. Story 134. I have had past relationships and friends with benefits take my shirts, hoodies, and boxers. It is fine if we are at home, but it is not acceptable to take them for a couple of days, especially without asking. Story 135. My wife kept borrowing one of my favorite sweaters, so I finally gave it to her. I kind of wished she had picked a different one, but I found another one like it and let her have it. That guy seems strange to me. Story 136. My college ex-girlfriend took 5 to 6 of my hoodies that I bought from a department store. When I found out she was unfaithful, I took her favorite bracelet since I couldn't get my hoodies back. 2 weeks after the breakup, my sister saw the bracelet in my car and informed me that it was a Cartier bracelet worth $1,500. Story 137. Every girlfriend I have had has taken at least one item of clothing, whether it be t-shirts, hoodies, or sweatpants. Story 138. If a girl asked to borrow a t-shirt and socks for work, that would be fine. However, if she just took them without asking, I would find that annoying too. Depending on her previous behavior, this could be a deciding factor in whether to continue a 2-month-old relationship. I would guess this is just one aspect of the situation, and she may have done other things that made her appear presumptuous or entitled. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.